Podcast coming to you on June 21st, 2022. A quick shout out to my sister, Christina, who is now turning 42. No, I'm sorry. No. I don't want to. I'm 42. She's 41 today. Yes, you're getting old. Yes, I'm going to say it. I don't care. I love you anyway. Hope you're having a good time in Jamaica. Have a good time. You and Nick, of course. Anyway, this podcast is subscribed, of course, on any podcast catcher such as Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. We're actually doing video today. Yes, we're doing video today because I decided I just wanted to today. And I wanted to make kind of a sort of not really quick pod today because I got a lot going on. I actually got to go on another podcast later on after I finish this one. So I want to try to get this out of the way as soon as possible. But anyway, lots to talk about real quick here. I got a lot of personal things I want to get into as well too. But before we get into that, hope you guys been following this stuff. With the NBA season's over, obviously, but I think the NBA is probably, especially in the last decade or more, has probably gotten the off season correct more than any other league in any sport. And right off the bat, I thought I totally forgot. I thought like after last week when the Warriors won the NBA title. That okay? Well, we'll read a little bit. Maybe no more stories, of course. Free agency should be pretty quiet for the most part. There's really no really big names doing anything for the most part. A couple of names here and there might have to make some decisions, but all in all, it'll be a pretty simple off season. Nah, fam, nah. Kyrie Irving's back in the news again. Kyrie Irving's back in the news, and he's there's reports by him of course, and the Brooklyn Nets now at an impasse right now in terms of their contract situation. In other words. This is where they're at right now. Kyrie Irving has till June 29th to decide whether or not he wants to opt in for his $36.5 million deal for next year. Obviously, it's a little complicated because Kyrie Irving has not been the most available player, for Brooklyn Nets in the last 3 years. In fact, he has missed, in 3 seasons alone, he's missed more games than he's played. He's missed 123 games in the last 3 years as a Brooklyn Net. So, obviously, and we've heard some, the front office, Sean Marks, say that obviously we want Kyrie to be here, but we need to figure out what's going on for the future. He's made some kind of sour remarks about not being very happy with Kyrie Irving's lack of availability and all that. And for the record, I don't blame him. I do not blame him at all. I mean, I get some things Kyrie Irving when 2020 happened and the social justice stuff happened. And obviously, he felt some kind of way about that. He felt some kind of way about the January 6th chaos and all that, and I get all that, and I see where he's coming from with that. End of the day, you got to show up, man. And then, of course, last year, the vaccination stuff. He didn't want to get vaccinated, so he play only road games and missed most of the year last year because of that. And you can argue that cost him the season. So now what? Now the Nets have a decision. Well, the Nets, Kyrie Irving has a decision to make. He has 8 days to decide whether or not his future's in Brooklyn. But it's complicated because here's the thing also too. Kevin Durant came to Brooklyn because of Kyrie Irving, and I'm sure obviously the Nets don't want to alienate Kevin Durant as well too. So it gets more complicated when you start involving other players that are there, they're best friends and whatnot. So we've heard rumors now last 40 hours about where Kyrie could go. Obviously we've heard the Lakers, the Knicks, the Clippers, all teams that if Kyrie decides to opt out his contract. That he can possibly go to those teams. That those teams will actually try or potential suitors for him. So and I get it. I completely get it. But I not that I side with the Nets here because I'm always going to side with the player for the most part to get their money. But in this situation, I can totally understand why the Nets have apprehension. I think anyone with common sense, I think anybody that works in any job in this world and has followed this story for the last couple of years could understand why the Nets have apprehension about signing this guy to a long-term deal. Hell, I've been saying it for months now on this podcast now, that Kyrie Irving is a fantastic talent. Kyrie Irving is box office. Kyrie Irving to me is one of the 2 or 3 best players to absolutely watch in this league. Like he asked me now, give me 3 players do you want to watch this league? Kyrie Irving's in that top 3. Kyrie Irving's there. Steph Curry's there. Probably John Morant. Probably Giannis. Those Luka. But Kyrie Irving is in that ilk. So the issue with Kyrie Irving has never been about, his talent. If Kyrie Irving was available, if Kyrie Irving made himself available, was reliable, Kyrie Irving getting the max wouldn't even be something to think about. But also, on top of that, everything else too, Kyrie Irving also isn't necessarily the best player, the best guy you want to play around either. But Kyrie Irving's value has kind of gotten lower in recent years. To me, the whole situation with him in Boston, it's kind of forgotten now because he was only there, a year and a half? Or 2 years, rather? But the 2 years he played in Boston, you can argue the Celtics benefited from him not being there and whatnot. So I can understand the apprehension on Brooklyn Nets' part about whether to sign this guy to a long-term deal. I almost lean and agree with it. But ultimately, I do think when rubber meets the road, of course, I think when the rubber meets the road, I think the Nets and Kyrie will come to a conclusion and they'll figure something out. Whether or not Kyrie opts in for a year or they figure out a long-term solution. Because the Nets can't lose with nothing either, though. That's the other thing also, too. You don't want to lose him. Because like I said, the complication part with Kyrie is that it's not necessarily you're losing him. It's also the Kevin Durant specter. So how does Kevin Durant react to this? So we'll see how that goes. It's gonna be fascinating because in the next 8 days is gonna be fascinating. See what he does. Because say what you want about Kyrie Irving about his unreliability, but there will be at least 3-4 teams who are going to make a move or try to make a pass at him. You know this. He's just too damn talented. So we'll see how that goes. One of the topics now, as we now finish the NBA season, obviously very sad for me. I'm an NBA diehard, so obviously it's one of those things where I'm going to miss it. Obviously, free agency, a couple weeks free agency coming up, of course, and see how that goes, especially with this Kyrie story. One of the topics I saw on First Take yesterday was, now that Steph Curry's won his fourth title in 8 years, that one of the biggest stories now is that, okay, so who is now the face of the league? Who's the face of the league right now? And I gotta be honest with you. Think about that face of the league. For the last 15 years, you can argue it's been LeBron James. It's been LeBron James. Like if I wrote you in a path of who's been what last 20, 30 years. The 70s and the 80s was Magic and Bird. They shared that probably. Okay, the 90s was Jordan. Okay, the 2000s you can argue it was Kobe for a chunk of the decade. And it's been LeBron since 2007, 2008, the face of the league. But we have now gone to, and I hope people really appreciate this now where we're at. We're now at a point now in this league where parity is a thing. Like this is for the first time in decades we have parity. Like Golden State, the Warriors winning the title this year was not guaranteed. Like that was, coming to the year, they weren't even the favorites. So they've won in 4 times in 8 years, but that was never guaranteed. They weren't the favorites coming to the year. It was Milwaukee, it was Brooklyn, it was a bunch of other teams. The Lakers were one of the favorites coming to the year because at the time we didn't know if the Westbrook thing would work or not. And now we're at a point now where this is wide open, and not just the league itself, but also who's the best player. Here's where I stand on that. I agree that Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, is the best player in basketball. I agree with that. Is he the face of the league, though? I don't know if that's definitive. I definitely think he's the best player in the league, but I don't think he's the face of the league either. To be honest, I don't think there is a particular face of the league. I think there's many faces of the league. I think you can go 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 deep of guys who I think are really representative of the league. Like, to me, it comes down to, okay, Giannis, of course, in that conversation. I say Luka Doncic in that conversation. Steph Curry definitely in that conversation. And despite what people may think I'm now, 19 years in, I still think LeBron James has a case to be made. And here's why. Here's the case of LeBron James. As bad as Lakers were this year, forget the fact they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make the play-in. We're still talking about LeBron James during the playoffs. We're still talking about LeBron James now in the offseason. To me, if that's not being the face of the league, I know what is. So I'm not saying LeBron is definitive. I don't think any of these guys are definitive at this point in 2022. But I do think that these 4 guys have a strong case of being the faces of the league. And to me, at the end of the day, I think that's a great thing. I think it's good to have diversity. I think it's great to have, have different guys stepping up on a different night. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a fantastic thing. So I don't know. I just think we have to kind of appreciate that for the first time in decades, it's not just Michael Jordan. It's not just Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or Magic and Bird or Dr. J or, Bill Russell. It's a conglomerate of guys who night after night have a case be made to be the best or one of the best in the league. And it's a great place to be at. So appreciate it. I hope people will appreciate that, man. So anyway, before we close out this NBA talk, because obviously we're gonna probably gonna be the last podcast for a while. We go strong NBA, maybe one more, in July. Talking about free agency if there's any big news to be talked about. But NBA title odds are out finally. I actually wanted to touch on this last week, but by the time I recorded the podcast after the award from the title, the odds were not placed on the sites yet. But right now, obviously the title odds right now are the Warriors are the favorites to win it all next year. The second favorites next year to return, basically the second favorites are the Celtics to return. So basically Vegas thinks that we may get a rematch, which I don't know if I disagree with that. The Nets are third at 650. The Clippers are fourth at plus 675. The Bucks be higher, dude. The Bucks be much higher than this. I think if you're asking me who should be who are your top 3 to 5 favorites next year to win title next year, I would go Warriors 1. I go Bucks number 2. I would go. I honestly go Clippers 3. I think Kawhi and Paul George, assuming they're healthy, they're well coached. Ty Lue did defend. I don't think Ty Lue gets a lot of credit for what he did this past season in the Clippers, not having Kawhi and Paul George for a chunk of the season. The Clippers were, should probably should be the playoffs. They made the play-in, obviously. And they lose Paul George on the chance to make the playoffs because of COVID. The Clippers are going to be really good next year, as long as they're healthy. So I think the Clippers should be 3. I would say, the Nets are 4. Celtics in that mix, obviously. You got to give the Celtics some credit there. So they'll be in the top 5, of course. The Grizzlies are in the same situation. Yeah, I think I'll do like a power rankings probably sometime next podcast. Whenever just kind of like rate what teams I believe are in the mix for being in the title picture. So we're actually now obviously now we're going past the NBA now. The Stanley Cup is still going on. We just had Game 3 last night. Tampa Bay avoided being down 0-3. They won 6-2 in Game 3. Tampa and Colorado, really good series so far, honestly. But I tell you this, the NHL playoffs are always awesome. The NHL playoffs are always. I've always said, of all the playoffs in every major sport in this country, the NHL playoffs are always, to me, the most competitive. Even if I don't watch the regular season, tooth and nail like I do with the NBA or the NFL or even Major Baseball for that matter, I do get invested in the NHL playoffs. Even in recent years, like I'll still watch the playoffs. But this year especially too, and I got to credit the Florida Panthers for having a great year, especially too locally. The Rangers had a bounce back this year, made the conference finals for the first time in quite a while. I think about 7 years. I think my love for NHL has started to return. My appreciation for the NHL is starting to return. Like my wife and I are talking about possibly going to multiple games next year. Seeing Panthers play. Because I think a lot of it too, especially the fact that obviously being able to watch it, but also the NHL being back on ESPN too helps. Being on the front end of the major networks now, like it was on NBC Sports for the last 7-8 years, which is fine. You can find it, but it's not. I always say when it comes to like major sports or major things, like placement matters. Like people are not going to want to keep digging for things to find things. If you make it easier to find a product or whatever it may be, you have a fighting chance for that product to be successful. The NHL not be on ESPN, and ESPN, let's face it, so see what you want about ESPN, how you feel about ESPN. ESPN is still the standard when it comes to sports. Like when you think of sports, you think of sports news, you think about sports debate. ESPN is the first thing that comes to your mind. First thing. So the fact that the NHL is now ESPN again for the first time in decades, the fact that You have the playoffs now, and I think what's also helped too, especially right in this moment now, because the NBA playoffs are finished, the NHL has all this real estate right now between now and the end of the Stanley Cup. And not a lot of it's because of the fact that the NHL had the break in the middle of the year. And typically, the NHL always 2 weeks ahead of the NBA because they start the season 2 weeks before the NBA starts. But this year, because they had the long break in the middle of the year, the NBA was able to get ahead of the NHL on the schedule and finish their season before the NHL did. But now the NHL has, carte blanche right now for the next week or so. The NBA is done. Yes, it got baseball, but still, the NHL has carte blanche because I know that they're doing their Stanley Cup, their championship, of course. But I tell you, I've really enjoyed this playoffs this year, especially. I've watched most of the games as much as I can, especially the Rangers, of course. But I think and I used to be a guy that, growing up in the 90s, I loved the NHL. I used to watch it all the time. And a lot of it was because of the fact that ESPN always had it on. Seeing Barry Melrose on TV all the time. I think I'm returning. I think I'm getting back to loving the NHL again. And like I said, my wife and I have been talking about wanting to go to some games next year when Rangers come to town and play the Panthers and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm back. Obviously, it won't be on the level of the NBA. It won't be on the level of certainly not the NFL. Baseball, I love baseball, but baseball is one of those things where I don't have to watch every game. I know what's going on. The numbers do really speak for itself. But the NHL is fun. And again, the playoffs are always fantastic. Like, obviously, it was great this year, but it's great every year. It's always the best playoffs of any league in this country. So I'm looking forward to hopefully next year going to some games next season for the first time in quite a while. The NHL's back, and I really believe the NHL is going to come up in general, and I think we're about to have a resurgence of hockey in this country. And I think, again, placement matters. Them being on ESPN, them being on TNT, it helps because many sports fans watch those stations on a regular basis. So the more you see it, the more it's going to become a topic. The more it's going to become a topic, the more energy is going to put into the sport, and the more into the sport, people are going to want to watch it. And it's fun. It's a fun sport to watch. It really is. So anyway, today I'm kind of a down mood today because I've been living in my place here for about 4 years. I've been renting this place. We've been renting. My wife and I have been renting all our lives. We like to rent. People say, I should buy a home. I get all that, but renting works for us for many reasons. I think I explained that on a podcast way back when, probably about 3, 4, 5 years ago. People thought it was crazy for saying what I said, but it is what it is. Today, however, I got my renewal rates. The market. You read about it all the time now, and you read about it all the time when it comes to the market, inflation, the whole nine, and it's insane. Today I got my renewal rates. I'm not going into details what numbers are, but my renewal rate came back, and basically, if I stay here 14 months, which is the 12 to 14 months, knowing the average, my rent's going to go up $400. $400. Now, granted, when you hear stories about people who've gotten their rent raised to $800 to $1,000 just on a whim like that, $400 shouldn't be a big deal. But it's $400. It's $400. Still $400. So we got to make a decision about whether we're going to stay here or not. I think we're going to lean to staying here, honestly, because number one, let me say this for record. Like, where I'm at right now, for the last 4 years, I'm very happy at. Our location is perfect, too, especially. Like, our kids' schools is literally across the street from our house. We have every restaurant, everything you can imagine in the area within a mile or two. So our location where we live at is amazing. We looked at some of the prices of places around our neighborhood to see where we can move to. And some of them are a little lower, but where we're at right now, I'm happy here. So we got to figure things out. Obviously, rebudgeting and the house, rebudgeting. How are we gonna do this? And it's one of those things where, yeah, we'll probably stay here, but how long we'll stay here? Because when we moved here like 4 years ago, we were saying to ourselves, like, we're so happy here that we could stay here for another 10 years. The location's great. Kids go to school here, this and that. But with inflation now and these rates going up, and they're going to go up again next year when we renew again. I think that obviously we're going to figure things out. Whether or not we decide to buy a home or not, I don't know. But it's insane. The rental market is insane now. It's crazy, and I get it. Everybody's going through it. I got friends of mine, coworkers of mine, who told me that their rent went up $1,000 because of private owner. I'm lucky. I don't have a private owner. I'm lucky that our place we live at is actually in development. It's in a great area. It's a great location, great amenities here. So it's worth the you get. I'll say on our end, we do get the money. We do get our money's worth when it comes to living here. But it's just a shock value of it going for $400. You know, I mean, obviously we have about a month to decide. Like I said, I think we're going to lean towards staying here anyway. But man, it's depressing. It's depressing. You know, because we've been there 4 years, and obviously rent goes up every year. But it went up before. It went up $40, $60. I think 1 year it went $100. I mean, maybe $80, $100. But $400, like Jesus, that's insane. And I just know how this is going to sustain. This inflation is going to sustain itself because you know people are going to get priced out, and then you're going to have a situation where also not that, but also a situation where crime's going to go up now because people get desperate now, and people don't do crime because they want to. People do crime because sometimes they are they're desperate. So it's one of those things where I don't know, man. I don't know, but I mean, we can afford it. Yes, we can afford even the $400 jack the price, but it's like, do you really want to? And what's the options? Like I said, there's some options out there, but I don't know if there are options I really looking forward to, you know, diving into, honestly. But like I said, we have a couple days. We have a little bit of time to decide what to do here. Plus, I'm pissed off too because they sent us our, you know, they're supposed to send us our renewals 2 months before. They were late as it was, 7 days late sending us a renewal as it is. Okay, first off. So not only are you late to getting us a renewal, but you expect us now to decide on a short notice now whether or not to stay here, you know, while you raise our rent $400 fucking dollars. That's what bothers me. So anyway, last couple of days, I was dog sitting for a friend. You guys know about a month ago I lost my dog OC after 13 years. We had to put him down rather. And I said, I believe I said in that podcast that I don't see myself ever having a dog again. Certainly not in the near future. And this week we decided to been asked to watch a friend's dog for the weekend because this person was going away for a couple days. And we said, yeah, sure, no problem. The dog is sweet, but yeah, if there was any reminder that I am done owning a dog for now, if not ever, I think this weekend really confirmed that. And not just with me, but with my wife also too. She was annoyed. She was just like over it, the whole nine. And you know, basically she said we couldn't wait to send the dog back to her owner. And I'm over it. And it's not just to do with the fact that, you know, my dog is gone and I miss my dog. Because obviously I miss my dog like crazy. But I also, you know, I'm raising 2 kids now. I've said for a long time now that, you know, I'm 42 years old. I want to, as I get older, to have less and less responsibility. I had my dog before I got married, before I had kids. So, you know, the dog, having a dog, you know, as a part of my family was obviously we did it, but it was a challenge at times. And obviously I miss my dog. I still miss my dog no matter what. But at the same time, it's like it's a lot. So on one hand, there was some relief about my dog being gone, but at the same time, you know, I was over it. So, you know, I'm at a place now where like, yeah, I have cats. I'm good with cats, and we'll stick to that for the time being, probably forever. So last thing before I go, minimalism is back, and right now we're back to refocus on minimalism. I think my wife is actually on board now. We've been going through some things here at home, going through boxes and stuff, and trying to get rid of things and maybe sell things, whatnot. I actually watched a minimalism documentary that came out in 2016 that was done by the Minimalist back in 2016, which is strange because one of my friend of the podcast, Joshua Jacobs, actually had sent me a text saying, "Did you watch this documentary?" Because I mentioned about me, you know, going back to minimalism, and I go, "No, I don't see the documentary." He said, "You need to watch it. It's on Netflix." Not knowing that the day I decided to watch it, it was the very last day it was on Netflix after 6 years. So I decided to watch it immediately on last Tuesday. Fantastic documentary. It's just, different stories about people who decided to change their lives because of, you know, they realized that, you know, having things and trying to live their best life and all that. But yeah, I'm back to focus on minimalism, and that's the thing also too. Also with inflation now and all this stuff going on here around the world, minimalism to me becomes even more of a priority because it really truly makes you value the things you really value instead of having things and many things. So my wife and I have been going through stuff. We're going through clothes. We're going through things that we've had for years that we don't need. I mean, we're not like we're not a cluttered family, but we do have things that we hold on to. That's like, do we really need this? So her and I have been, or we're actually working on putting together a project to really get back to prioritize minimalism moving forward, and have her on board, which is great. So anyway, that's it for now. I said it was going to be short, but it wasn't that short. I got to record another podcast with my boy Big Jim. I'm on Twitter, of course, at EJChristian7. Earnestly podcast. I got to go back. This is on video, so we'll see what happens. We will talk soon, and yeah, stay up, and God bless, and we'll talk soon. Later.